Danielle, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited that we're able to make this happen. I know it's taken a little time, but this is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. That way, for people who aren't familiar with you and your incredible background in field hockey and beyond, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all the amazing things that you've got going on?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for hyping me up. Glad to be here. Yeah, life has been crazy. Life has been lifing over the last few months. Let's just say that. So, glad we are able to connect and glad I'm able to share my story. So yeah, my name's Danielle Grega. How old am I? I'm 29 right now, almost pushing 30. Not quite there yet, but gonna be 30 this year. I currently reside in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am in nutritional sales. Previously, my background, so I'm originally from Kingston, Pennsylvania, grew up there with an amazing family and friends. And yeah, so I basically grew up in middle school, I would say. I had a bunch of friends. My mom had played in high school. They're like, you should come play field hockey. And I had no idea what it was. Obviously, my mom did, but and that's when she started to, get me into it and want to play. But before that, I had no idea what it was. Never had heard of it. So yeah, I started playing field hockey in sixth grade. Um, Played all through middle school, had great coaches, played for various clubs in the Northeast Pennsylvania area, and just absolutely fell in love with the sport. It's such a fun sport. It's very creative, technical, and it's also a team sport. So I met some of my best friends through it. And then I had the opportunity to go to Division One to play field hockey. So I played at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, for 4 years, and that's kind of when I really started to, I would say, take it seriously, want to see where the sport could take me. Because I was always, grew up playing a bunch of sports, always was the athletic one, wanted to be the best and play at the highest level and do all those things. So I was like, all right, let's see where this sport can take me. I absolutely love it. So I got involved in the US national program. I would say I grew up playing in middle school with the, Olympic development pathway. But then I would say in college is really when I started to have a presence on the junior national team. So U16, U18, U21 developmental team. So I was playing on the national teams. And then actually, when you graduate college in the US, there's no opportunity to really play professional field hockey other than joining the national team. And I had no idea if I was at that level. I'd been playing on these teams for a while, but then at this point, I was on the developmental team. We went down to Santiago, Chile for a tournament against their developmental team. And from there, the national team coach was actually there watching and prospecting for girls to bring up to the national team. And I had no idea if this was even on my horizon, if it was in my future. But I got home and about a few weeks later, I was actually planning to move back home to Pennsylvania. And I got the call from the senior national team head coach. And she actually invited me to join the national team at that point. So it was good timing. I had just graduated, was moving back to Pennsylvania, and the national team was actually based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania at that time. So it was obviously a no brainer. I loved the sport. So then from there, I started playing on the senior national team. I played on the team for 6 years, some of the best years of my life. Super grateful for the opportunity, the experience, the friends, the challenge it posed to me. And yeah, I lived in numerous different cities playing on the team. We were in Pennsylvania, then we were in North Carolina for a few years. So got to travel not only the country training, but also the world and playing internationally. So yeah, that is a little bit about my background and what I've done. I can go into depth probably for hours about those experiences, but yeah, it's a surface level overview.
We have so much to talk about, Danielle, and I mean, just kind of running it back here. First off, I think one of the reasons we both get along so well is obviously them 570 roots, Northeastern Pennsylvania through and through. It's so
Mhm.
crazy to me too when I stop and think because I grew up maybe an hour and a half north of you up in Susquehanna County,
Yep.
and I don't think anyone in the county had heard of field hockey before. I know I didn't going through high school. It just wasn't a thing where we were. just an hour, hour and a half south. It's almost like a hotbed for field hockey. Like, I would say from like that Wilkes-Barre area down to Hershey and east to Philly is like so much field hockey going on, which is incredible to see. I got exposed to it when I was living in Maryland, and I had the opportunity to work with a few athletes on, I think they're on the U21 team, and it really opened my eyes to the sport, and it was incredible to be involved in, to watch, and I mean, I obviously didn't play, but I was like, I can see why people like this so much as a sport that way. And it's so incredible to hear the opportunities that you got from the sport, from your love from the sport, how your mom introduced you to it. So there's a little bit of a family tie that way. It's just really incredible to hear about your journey that way. You mentioned too that you were kind of a multi-sport athlete, did a lot of different things growing up that way. What made you decide on field hockey out of all the other sports, and what were those other sports that you were playing, that way as well?
Well, yeah, first off, going back to when you said you had never seen the sport before, you never heard of it, and then when you finally watched it, you, like, had this, like, amazement when you watched it, you like you said, you really fell in love with the sport, and I think that is, like, what I am trying to do as it's still not even, like, one of the most popular sports in the country. It is in the whole world, but in the US, it's still so unknown. So every time, especially on the West Coast, there's not a lot out here, especially when I meet someone, who doesn't know what field hockey is, I always just encourage them, go on YouTube, watch some videos, like, if you have the opportunity, go to a game, like, it is just one of the most unreal sports ever, and yeah, like I said, that's why I fell in love with it. It's such a technical sport, and you can be so creative. I think, like, when I every time I meet someone who hasn't played, I hand them a hockey stick, they're like, "What the heck? Like, how do I do this? How is this possible?" They're like, "You have to flip it over every time you wanna go onto your weak side." I'm like, "Yep." "You can only play right-handed? What?" Like, it's I get all these comments, and that's why I think I loved it so much because it is so technical, and it's such a unique sport, but also the tempo of the game, like, it's not I played softball before, sitting in the outfield as a kid growing up, picking at the grass, right? Like, those are nice, those are fun sports, I love them, I've played them all, but, like, the ones that really drew me in were the ones where, fast tempo, it's always moving, there's always something going on, it's action packed, and so I grew up playing soccer as well, loved soccer, but when I started playing field hockey, it just felt a little bit more special, I guess I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that really impressed me about it is I watched it, and within 5 minutes, I knew I could never do any of that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
unbelievable," and I think there's something in relation to sports and athletics that way, this sort of like awe kind of moment or amazement that we get watching athletes play sport at a high level, and I think there's something really powerful, magical. I'm not sure if I'm wording that the best about that. I mean, I think the Olympics are, another great example of that as well, right? Every 4 years for winter or summer, world gets together, watches athletes compete in sports, and we're just all in amazement over the athletic ability that these individuals are displaying that way. And I know that you yourself, I believe, had Pan Am Games, I think Olympic qualification, a number of different medals and different things like that in the past. What was that like to, not just make the national team, but also play, I think, like over 90 international caps, win some medals, and like literally like represent your country on such a large scale that way?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, going back to what you said about the Olympics and everything like that, it's so funny because we were just watching the Winter Olympics, and I'm sure a lot of people could agree with me, but the one sport that I always found myself watching, and it was on all the time, granted, but also curling. And yeah, it's not like one of the like fast-paced sports, but you're sitting there and you're like, how are they doing this? Like, it's just like, it's so mathematical and strategic, and I'm like, it's just it looks so simple, but there's so much more to it, and you could see that if, like, once you really start to watch it, so, it's one of those sports that, like, just draws you in, and you're just, like, mesmerized by it, and that's what field hockey was for me, obviously for you as well. But yeah, I mean, my time on the national team, you were correct. I was at the Pan Am Games. I played in 2 of them. We won bronze and then silver in the other. Played in several pro leagues, which is a league for international countries, consists of 8 countries. You play each team twice a year during the season. And yeah, that was actually an insane moment as well. So the first year of pro league, I think it was just my second year on the team is 20 maybe 2019 at this point, and they were still trying to format the league and the schedule and everything to kind of, the best of their ability, and what they landed on for the first season was you play each team once home and once away, and the season was expanded from, like, January, February to June. So within that time frame, we had to travel to 8 other countries, which was absolutely insane. One of them being China, for one single game. So we literally flew there for 3 days, didn't even get adjusted to the time, because it was one game, you know? Obviously, every game matters. We wanna win them all, but at the end of the day, it was one game. So it's like, "All right, we'll just fly in, do our best to manage, and get out," because it's such a crazy travel, 12-hour time difference, over 12 hours traveling. So, yeah, that was just one example. I got to go to Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, a bunch of the European countries, Belgium, England, Holland. So, yeah, an amazing experience for sure in that specifically. Down the road, they figured out how to best work it where you weren't traveling, across the country for one single game. But, yeah, it was awesome. And then, yeah, I played in 2 Olympic qualifiers. One was in it was the first time we were qualifying for, Tokyo 2020, and unfortunately, we didn't qualify. It was an insane experience. We It was for both Olympic qualifiers actually, sorry, I'm gonna correct myself. For the first Olympic qualifier, it was a 2-game series, and aggregate score, won and went to the Olympics and qualified. So, that year, I remember we played India in India because they were the higher ranked team. Played them in India. The first game we lost, like, 4-1, I believe. Fact You could fact check me on that, but I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, it was something like that. We were down by, like, 3 goals, and then the second game, we came back. I think we were winning, like, 3 nothing, and then they scored, in the last few minutes. So obviously, it was like a roller coaster of emotions in that, experience and in that qualifier. Down bad after the first game, not thinking we had any chance, kinda had that mindset of "Hey, just go out there, we obviously are in this position, what do we have to lose?" And then, went out there and really thought we were gonna get it done and then didn't. So, yeah, what that was just an insane experience. And then the second qualifier was more of a tournament style. Top 3 teams from the tournament were to qualify. So, we were in a pool with India, New Zealand, and, um, one other team. I wanna say Italy. Also, don't fact check me. Um, but so we had actually won our pool, and then we were going to crossovers with Japan, and at that point in the semifinals, if we won that game, we were automatically qualified. So, yeah, it was just these are teams that we've lost to in the past, India, New Zealand, Japan, and it was just an insane moment of the team really coming together, putting it all out there. A lot of us had been at that qualifier in, the previous Olympic cycle. So it was, again, just a roller coaster of emotions being back in India, having, some new people, some people who were there for the previous experience. And it was just a lot of heart and guts that took. And at the end of the day, we were able to get it done. But yeah, as you could see from my experiences, it was a wild ride to say the least. But again, so grateful for the opportunity to have traveled to all those places, been in such pressure situations. Not everyone gets the opportunity to be in those moments and situations. So grateful that I was a part of that. And then also just grateful to have played against some of the best hockey players in the world. You can sit at your house and look on YouTube and watch games of the best countries in the world, Holland, Argentina, but to really play against them, it's another feeling. And especially for a sport I love, it was a starstruck awe moment for sure.
You said that so well. And to your point, pressure is such a privilege. And there's a lot of times, I'm guilty of this myself. We get in these high pressure, high stress, high risk, high reward situations. And maybe we have doubts, we question ourselves, whatever. The whole mental thing starts going. And it's like, let me just pause for a second and think like, this is such an incredible opportunity. Like, I get to be here. How many people would do anything, literally anything, to be doing what I'm doing right now? I think that pressure is the thing that can literally turn crap into diamonds or diamonds into dust. You ultimately just have to, rise to the occasion that way. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did
Yeah.
that way. Do you have any advice for other athletes who find themselves in those high pressure environments or maybe even just suboptimal conditions, right? Like you mentioned in relation to travel to China, it's like, look, we were just on a plane for a long time. No one got any sleep. We've got maybe a red eye back in a few days. Like everything's all jacked up. No one's feeling good. Maybe we don't like the food in this country or that country or whatever it is that way. It's like things do not always go according to plan, but you still have to show up and put on for, in this case, your country. How were you able to do that? And what advice do you have for others who may, struggle with that?
Yeah, I think, it's tricky because you never wanna be it's easy to get in those like, I mean, that happened to us number of times, right? Like, we didn't like the food, we didn't have we weren't in our own beds at home, like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of things probably will go wrong, and you just have to kinda sometimes accept that, because everyone else is in the same situation. That's kinda what we, a lot of times had thought, like, these countries are everyone else is kind of, at some point has been in those situations. So you can't look at yourself as like the victim. You got to look at, optimistic. What can we do better? How can we overcome these things? And so I think also it's really easy to get in those like complaining, and, bad mood, things like that, and I always look back and I'm like, your time, whether it's high school, club, college, on the national team, your time in any of these chapters of your life is it's so limited, and I look back right now and I'm like, "Why the heck was I complaining about being in China or in India?" Yeah, it's not ideal. There a lot of things went wrong, but what an incredible experience and moment, that I literally talk about to this day. So, I would just say, I think the biggest thing, and it's hard in the moment, but is be present, and just soak it all in. Even, like, every time we would step on the field for the national anthem with USA on our jerseys, I would look around the stands. I would just kind of really take it all in and just soak that moment in because it's such an incredible, you know, experience for me being there. But whether it's like, a high school game in front of your family and friends or college senior night, whatever it may be, your time in that chapter of your life is so limited. And a lot of times you're going to look back and be like, wow, why was I, you know, frustrated or complaining or whatever it may be, but, I think, yeah, it's such a incredible thing to just really soak it all in.
Absolutely. What were your favorite places that you traveled to? Any countries or memories or anything of that sort really stick with you?
Yeah, I mean, notably, like, my favorite country or part of the world was Australia and New Zealand. It's such a very unique culture, very laid back, relaxed, chill, and, I mean, the weather, beautiful, scenery, and, it's such a nice area to be. It's kind of like America, but, nice, and, their accents are pretty cool as well, so but, yeah, I mean, Europe was always awesome to go to. Again, great food in Europe, clean, um, easy to travel within the countries as well, so, Loved that. And then, yeah, I would say those are like my top two.
Yeah, no, I hear so much about those 2 countries that way. A lot of people really seem to enjoy their time there, for lack of a better way to put it, and, I think there's something special about that too in relation to field hockey, because as you mentioned, they're both big field hockey countries as well. One of the things that I think we talk about a lot with athletes as well is how all these opportunities through sport, whether that's the travel opportunities and seeing the world, to the lessons that they learn from it, or the lessons that they pick up from the coaching personnel or the captains that are on the team that way. Quick shout out to our boy Tex with captains and coaches for that line there. I think there's so much that comes from engaging in sport that sets us up for success in the rest of our life. And obviously, you working in sales, like there's an element of competition with that. There's an element of travel with that. I see so much parallel between sport and sales that way. What kind of things have you picked up from your time playing field hockey that kind of bleed into day-to-day life now with your current work and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this would be a necessarily a positive, but I thought about it earlier in a question. You said pressure is privilege. And I think it's kind of funny because I do see that in my, personal and work life as well. Maybe procrastinating a little bit, you have a deadline and you're waiting till the last minute. But those are when I really get things done. I have to have something done within a day or 2 days. So, maybe not necessarily positive, but I just did just wanna throw that out there because I thought that was funny. But, yeah, there are a ton of, parallels to, sports and, I would say sales. I never thought I would be in a sales role in my life. I was like, "That's not me." But then as my fiancé, Lucas, he is still in, a sales role, but, as I was dating him and got to really learn what his day to day was like, I was like, "Wow, it's really not like that typical sales, person that everyone thinks of that's knocking on your door, won't go away," those types of things. But, yeah, so I would say the competitiveness, I think, is just one of the top things, whether it's results driven or just being the best, in your day to day. I think those are things that have really set me up for success in not only work, but personal as well. We just completed a high rocks and we could have kind of went, lackadaisical about it, but we really wanted to push ourselves and be competitive and have a competitive finish time. So that was one of the most recent things. And then I think, you're just always looking for that next challenge. And so we're completing a marathon, hopefully completing a marathon in June. So just finding whether it's these big events and achievements or just like on a day-to-day basis of having a to-do list and getting it all done or whatever it is, I think just that competitive mindset, results driven, you can see in many different ways, shapes, or forms in your day to day.
Yeah, that drive and that ambition, and in your case, you and Lucas literally feed off of each other in that, I'm sure.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a little heated in our household. Thank God we can never work for the same company, that's for sure. But yeah, no, it's great. And then, yeah, I mean, there's so many different characteristics and lessons and things that field hockey has told me. I think leadership, communication, again, that perseverance and things aren't gonna always go to plan, that flexibility, being able to just kinda adapt and go with what's happening. And then, yeah, I think, we are especially with the team sport, you learn a lot, relationship building, you get to, you go into all these chalk talk sessions and, um, captain-led talks and you build a lot of trust and you learn how to communicate with one another and serve each other best. So I think yeah, I would say just a lot from like a team perspective, teamwork, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and one of the other things that I feel like we didn't bring up yet that I really wanna highlight too is all of this obviously ties back to field hockey, whether we're talking about the lessons that you learn from it, the successes that way, the sport itself, and how you fell in love with it, and one of the things I've noticed is maybe it's just because it's not, like, the mainstream sport yet, but there's not enough support for the athletes. And I don't care what level we're talking about, if we're talking college, if we're talking professional, whatever we're talking about. I find a lot of times the athletes are literally figuring out like how to book their own plane tickets and how to afford their own plane tickets to some of these different places. And I feel like that element of it is not discussed enough. Like you literally kind of bootstrap and figure it out yourself how to go to all these places and be able to represent your country that way. I think that's something as well. Like, obviously, we're talking about the highs and the successes that you've experienced now, which is great. But I also think it's important to highlight that in order to get there, these athletes do need a lot of support that way. Are there ways that people listening could maybe help out or give to kind of that next generation of field hockey athletes? Or what does that kind of support look like for field hockey that way for the future?
Yeah, I think that's, a tough question, and this is where a lot of times I think, us as, people who are involved in the sport and wanna continue to grow it and, get it to be one of those mainstream sports in America, I think struggle a lot is because, like you said it well, there's not a lot of resources, not a lot of financial support, and being on the national team, it's a huge sacrifice. Um, it's played in a certain part of the country. So if you live in that area of town, it's great. But I was obviously doing long distance with my fiance. So I was living on the East Coast and he was living on the West Coast. And it's a tricky thing because, yeah, like I said, it's not a well known sport in America yet. And I think the biggest thing that would just help to really grow it and support is just like more people knowing about it, and I don't know how we achieve that, but I think just constantly, trying to grow the game, growing it in these areas of the country that aren't, currently playing or know about it, because once it's a well-known sport, widespread across the country, it's gonna be easier. Like I said, there's no professional league, and I know logistically it's a lot, but how can we create a professional league in America where people can still play? They can live on the East Coast, in the South, in the Midwest, in the East Coast, and we can have this kind of like community, almost like all the other professional sports that are in the United States right now. Because I think it does cause a lot of burnout when you are making a lot of sacrifices day in and day out, whether it's living apart from loved ones or not having the financial support to support yourself and having to get another job and um, whatever it may be. I think, once we just continue to grow the game, um, get it out there, and once everyone knows about it, there will be a way to go about and support all these, issues, I think.
Yeah, I love that, and that concept of growing the game applies to several sports: field hockey, lacrosse, softball, volleyball. Obviously, today is all about field hockey that way, but I think that's something this is my bold prediction. It's my bold claim of the day, if you will. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, sports are gonna be the only real thing left. I think the way this AI stuff is going, like, I don't think there's gonna be any, like, people in TV shows. I think you're literally gonna punch in what you wanna watch, and AI will generate a whole fricking TV show for you, a series for you, a movie for you, whatever you wanna watch. I think that'll be the future of, TV and entertainment.
Yeah,
If you want real stuff, you're gonna have to watch sport, and
yeah,
I think as a result, sport is gonna grow, exponentially because it's gonna be the only real thing left. You can't fake this, you can't AI generate this. I know there's discussion about certain sports with, like, fixing and betting and that sort of thing, but you don't see that in field hockey. What you see is real, it's authentic, and there's something extremely powerful about that, especially in today's day and age when that has become such a scarce thing. And there's something really, really powerful about that kind of raw authenticity that the sport offers, I feel.
absolutely.
Danielle, I realize we can probably talk about things all day long
So
because
many
you've got
brain to
so many
say.
stories and so much to cover that way. Is there anything we missed as we were chatting today or anything that we didn't get to cover that you wanted to?
Not that I could think of. Yeah, like I said, I can go on for hours about, all these things for the future. I hoped that, what field hockey looks like in 5 years, 5 to 10 years from now. You know, I would just say keep watching, whether it's a repost on Twitter or X, sorry, or a repost on, any social media about the sport. Continue to just do that, repost, get the game out there, continue to, more people know about it, things like that. And I really do hope the Olympics in 2026 will support that and help that. But yeah, I just can't say enough. It's such an amazing sport. And yeah.
And obviously, you host some camps,
Mhm.
clinics for field hockey as well. Tell the people about that.
Yeah, so I try to stay involved as much as I can. Where I live right now in Las Vegas, Nevada, there is no field hockey. Hopefully one day there will be. We'll see what happens moving forward. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities that I like to get myself involved in, whether it's working with different companies such as Leap Hockey. One of my previous coaches, Champions Edge, it's his company. He runs camps across the country, Signature Sports. Any of these companies, I try to stay involved, participate in yearly clinics and camps. I actually do some online sessions as well through Leap Hockey. So, yeah, I'm always looking for ways to stay involved, and if anyone ever is looking, doesn't know what to do to get them to the next level or wants to do more, and they can always feel free to reach out to me. I know a bunch of different companies and things that are always happening. So always willing to, for myself, be a part of those, but also for the athletes, being a kind of like middleman and getting them connected to what's best for them. So, yeah.
Absolutely, that is incredible. And where can people find out more about you online, like social media handle or that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, TikTok. I'm not really great on there, but I try my best to check them all. I mean, I'm sure you probably had a few DMs that went unread for a little while. So I always do my best, but I'm on Instagram, TikTok, I'm on Facebook. My at is Danielle Grega on Instagram and TikTok. Facebook is just my name. Or, if there's someone who really wants to make it personal, I'm always open to phone calls and emails, and we can get that shared out from there. But yeah, social media is probably one of the best ways nowadays to get a hold of me.
Absolutely, and we'll link to all of that in the description below too. That way, if you want to reach out to Danielle and learn more about her camps, clinics, online offerings, or anything else in that spectrum, you can just reach out to her there. Danielle, this was incredible. I'm so glad we got to do this. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.